Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So we're carrying on with the build of the KKPit drift car, and it's an interesting one. There's some bits that I've been quite impressed with, some bits that are a bit disappointing, but it's starting to look a bit more like an actual drift car now. So let's bring in for the C parts and see where we get on with this, and see what it looks like when it's pretty much finished. So let's crack on. So moving along with this part, we've got the C-bag components for holding the battery in. We've got no mention of what these three screws are for. There's also the bag that these sort of washers, countersunk washers, come in, that it tells us to use for the servo and the rails that run down here. Apparently at this point we're meant to have 11 left. The bag, if I can find it out, so that's the part number bag, and it says there's only 8 pieces in it, and we've only got one of these bags, and there was 9 pieces in it. But unfortunately we're going to need a lot more than 9, because we need at least another 8 for the side rails. We've got 4 on the servo, which is us 8 in total, but then we also need 3 for these battery rails, and yeah, all we've got left is 2. So it gave us 4 and then another 3. We've got 2 left, so basically they gave us 9, and at this point we're meant to have 11 left. So yeah, looks like they're missing from kit altogether. But let's carry on. So we need to lay these bits out. I think the easiest way of doing this, basically these all sit in from the top, and these are going to make us battery tray. So all we need to do is get the locating pins in. Then if we flip this over, and the majority of this is really nice to work on. So then we're going to need our 2mm hex, and we've just got to screw these in. Again, as I said with most of this, don't go crazy tight with this, else you're going to end up splitting plastic or ripping heads off screws. It's quite a weird design at chassis, because if it didn't have these parts countersunk, I'd swear that should go to the opposite side. So yeah, quite a weird design at times. And for this, out of these screws what you get out for these C parts, these are basically going to be the shortest of the countersunk screws. Now my guess with these machined now is for give it a bit of bend in the chassis. So once we got these bits on, we can flick it over. Then we're going to put these in place. They should just slide on. And you'll see why we need the countersunk washers to hold these, because we don't have any way to use a countersunk screw and not use one of these washers, which it's leaving me a bit not sure what we're going to do about the actual chassis rails. I don't know if I can have a look through the screw bags, because there's an awful lot of screws left. Not sure if we're going to be able to go through there and find some flathead screws. The instructions are a bit hit and miss with these, because it shows them in purple and they're all black, the countersunk washers. So when we put this side on, we've got a little thumb screw that screws this part in. Yeah, this is definitely not going to be my favourite way of fastening a battery in an RC. It just doesn't want to start that thread. So basically that's how his battery compartment's going to work. We just need to somehow get this that don't want to thread into this bit of plastic. I would go as far as to say that is garbage. That really is awful. It just does not want to screw in. It's not that we ain't got any threads in. So I made the threads with that. It just doesn't seem to want to bite and screw in. Yeah, that is a really, really just total garbage design of a way of fastening in a battery. Yeah, for me, that would be easier to use a screwdriver to undo one of the other things than using that. Just a really bad design, and yeah, absolutely destroys your fingers, and then once you've got it in, it won't undo. So yeah, definitely not impressed with that one bit. Right, let's move on, see what else we've got. So moving on, we've got the two side rails, and then we've got a whole load of these screws, and unfortunately nowhere near enough shims. So you can see we're meant to have another 8 of these, we've only got 2. So you basically got 3 holes in here, and they match up with the holes that you've actually used on the other side on here. So we've used the center one so far, so I'm going to go with that and mount these side rails the same. And I think the further I get on with this kit, the sort of more disappointed I am with it. It's not a bad kit. I'm really hoping it drives nice. But the sheer number of screws that we've got left, the lack of direction from the instructions, the missing shims on this, it all kind of adds up to a half-baked sort of experience. The way that the battery sort of attachment or quick release bit doesn't really work, that's awful. For the price of this kit, over £400, I don't think I would recommend it at the minute unless it drives exceptionally well out the box. This seems to be a gimmick, the rubber mounted motor. I don't see the point in that. I really don't like having to mount this now without any of the shims. You can't really tighten anything up because they're going to try and split the carbon. So I'm not overly impressed with that. I do like a few things. The way the servo's mounted to the front, it does allow you to adjust the length of the vehicle very easily. So that's definitely a bonus. There doesn't seem to be much slop in anything, which I do like. You do get a massive bag of shims, which at the moment I'm looking at thinking maybe they'd have been better off giving you less shims that you don't need, because at the minute, unless we use every one of these in the shocks, that is a ridiculous amount of shims that we've got left. I may repurpose some of them for these side rails if we don't use them for the shocks, but at the moment I just think it could have been executed so much better, this kit. At the sort of price when you're paying over £400 for a kit, I would expect them to be decent made parts. You're paying the sort of money you'd pay for a really high-end two-wheel drive RC race buggy, and some of the components feel really nice, but some just kind of feel cheap and not well thought out. The carbon seems nice but not overly impressive, but it does seem nice. It's nicely finished. But moving along, let's see what else we've got. So moving on, we've got the shocks to build, and this one looks like it's got a weird machining mark all the way down thread, so hopefully that doesn't affect too much. But you're going to make sure you lay these out in correct order. I would use O-ring grease on these little O-rings, even though it doesn't tell you to. And be careful when you're putting these together. They've got a bigger hole at the top for the nut and a smaller hole underneath for the shim. So basically, we're going to be getting this, and we've got a tiny little shim that we need to drop on top. So then we've got a damper with the larger indent at the top and the smaller at the bottom. So if you line the smaller one up with the shim, it just fits in. Then we've got our tiny little M2 nut that's got to go on the top. And I think the jury's out on these, whether a nut or a little C-clip is better. So it's certainly far easier to damage it with a nut, but these are lock nuts, so I would just go down finger tight on this and hopefully the lock nut will keep it together. So once we got this assembled, we then need to move on to our actual shock. So we've got this little black insert that needs to go inside. Then we've got this little O-ring that I would just dump in and get a little bit of O-ring grease on this. It does make them live a lot longer. So once we've got that in, we then need a little white end cap, and these point outwards. So you want the raised part facing outwards. Then we can screw on our actual end cap. Now I always find it best not to screw that all the way down, leave it very loose, and then just work the shaft through. And you'll find your O-ring grease also helps a lot on this. And again, I just do these finger tight. So once we've got that together, you're then going to need some shock pliers, and we've just got to screw the end on. Now it tells you to use the 14mm end ones for this, and we have got some spare 14mm end ones. So that should screw on, should have some really smooth action in shock bodies. So I'll get the other three of these assembled and then we'll move on. So once we've finished building them, that's what we should have. 4 shocks. They do feel smooth enough. They're not, don't feel like they're sticking. They don't particularly feel like this squashes the bottom seal. So I'm wondering how good these are going to be against leaking. But there we have it anyway. We've got the bottoms built. So let's move on, see what else we've got. So at this point, I think the instructions just go out the window. It doesn't tell you the difference between which spring is for front and rear. It tells you you've got a choice of different length ones of these, which you haven't. They're not in the kit. So all you've got is the short ones. That's enough to build the shocks up. So yeah, you've just got to basically guess at this point which springs to use. You do get a whole choice of springs, so I think we get 4 different sets or 3 different sets. So what, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, so I'm guessing it's soft, medium and hard, but as to which length you put on front and back, anybody's idea. It doesn't allude to that in the instructions at all. At this point anyway, maybe it does later. The shock oil I'm not going to put in, quite simply because Ed's got his own oil that he's going to use. It does suggest use Yokomo 50 to 100. So first off, for these shocks, we've got to try and screw this little cap or the little end stop onto these, which is not not one of the easiest. And I must admit, these ball joints, they just don't seem to want to screw onto anything straight. Like you see with that, everything just goes on at a weird angle, which I'm not also not really impressed with. It's same on the bottoms of the shocks. You've got to really tighten them down because they just, no matter what you do, they will not go on straight. So at this point, you'd put your shock oil in. You'd get the bubbles out by moving it through a few of its strokes. and then we put the rubber cap on the top, and then you'd sit one of these on, and then we drop this over the top and just tighten it down. Then we've just got to get these silicone O-rings inside this, which is going to be fun. If you're just a little bit patient with these, you can get them to go in. They're just a bit awkward because they try and twist every time you put them in. So once we got that on, you then need to screw it onto the shock body. And these are really loose. I think they could do with probably a bit of a bigger O-ring in them. I don't think that's going to take much to get it to move, unfortunately. So then we put this on. We've got the bottoms of the shocks that are really nice machined alloy parts. So they really do feel nice, the bottoms. But we've got one to build up like that, and then another two to build up with the other design shocks. So I'll get them done and then we'll crack on. So luckily the one with the weird machining doesn't affect the collar screwing on at all, so we got away with that. Don't forget to pull these down when you put the bottoms on, but the actual shocks, once they're built, they feel quite nice and smooth. The tighter coils are considerably weaker than these. We do get a bunch of spare O-rings. So we've got two spare O-rings, we've got a big O-ring spare, we've got a spare cap, spare little black spacer, a spare damper, and one of the little white collars for the bottom. So we do get a bunch of spare parts with it. Although up to now it's still not telling me which shocks go on which part of the RC, so let's move along. So moving along, we've got the 3 tapered head screws left from the C part, and we have the bumper, so these should screw on nicely. And again, don't go crazy over tightening these. It is just kind of for show, really. The bumper on a drift RC, you're not going to take any really hard knocks unless you're driving particularly badly. And these, strangely enough, screw in really easy compared to most of the rest of the plastics on the RC, where you have to make your own threads, but they screw in really nicely. So that is our bumper on. We've got his battery tray with his finger destroyer. We've got side rails that unfortunately we've got shims missing. Now the one thing I have noticed is we have a bunch of these little alloy shims. So I'm going to see if these will actually fit, because I don't like the tapered head screws without proper countersunk shims or any kind of shim. So hopefully these should fit over these screws and just give us a little bit more cushioning into this carbon. It would have been nice if the kit actually came with proper countersunk washers like it says in the instructions. It does look a little bit nicer now. They got little metal collars, but it's not ideal. I think Ed will probably grab a set of shims and get them swapped out. But that is our bumper sorted, and we've got a shim sorted. At least it's spreading the force out on this carbon a lot better, and we've got his bumper. So let's move on, see what else we've got. So it's just telling us to put the shocks on. It doesn't allude to which springs are meant to be on which side or anything, so I'm just going to clip them on so we've got them where we need them. And then when we get it to track and we start playing with oils and things, we can swap springs around and get it handling like it should. But at least I know they're not going to, we're not going to forget them on way to track. But we are starting to look like an actual drift car. So I've got the weak ones on the front, should give it more grip, and the stronger on back should let it break away once we get the shock oil in. But I think we're now at the part where we can start fitting the electronics. Let's get the speed controller out, get that mounted, have a look what we're doing about cabling, and see what we're doing about receiver. So moving on, what we've got is the FlySky INR4 GYB, and we've got this connected to the servo. So channel 1 directly to the servo, because we don't need a gyro or anything on this. We've got the KKPit plate that comes with the RC. Now, because we're going to be using this 10BL120, the wire isn't really long enough to reach right down here, but it does comfortably reach up here. So I've decided to mount the plate up here. I've moved the bar from up here to this position, and then we also get this little bracket, which I know that's not what it's intended for, but the INR4 has an antenna, and it makes a good little antenna mount. So that's got us antenna fixed nicely. We just need to connect the 10BL120. I've stuck the cap pack to the side, the switch to the back, so it should be nice and easy to get to from under the bodywork. And then we've just got to wire this in. Don't forget, you will need to go A, B and C, because we've also got the cable for this, for the sensor, which is going to run all the way over to this side. So we've got to get this stuck down. We've got to get these wires shortened and soldered, and on this they are labelled A, B and C, so we can go A, B, C. So we just need some nice tidy runs for this, and because this motor rocks, I'm not going to go as tight as I possibly can with these. I'm going to try and leave a little bit of wiggle room just so it doesn't fatigue the actual wires. And then as positive and negative, I think I'm going to bring them across this side if I can. So I'm going to have to be careful where the motor wires go, because these are quite short. And get these over this side, because I don't want them accidentally fouling any of the gearing or anything. And then I should just be able to bring this over that way around the motor wires, or through a few of them, and it should connect into the speed into the receiver. So if I just plug that in, so we've got enough to sort of maybe zip tie this down or feed it round the sensor wire or anything, so it doesn't affect the motor without moving, and we don't want this pulling tight. But yeah, let's get them wires soldered in and see how it looks when we're done. If you're wondering what this is, it's the BVD wire. So with this to the positive, be it there or there, whichever way his battery ends up going, this one wire, you don't need the negative when it's the wire that you're running the actual RC off. When it's the positive of the battery that's running the BEC and everything. But once I connect this to the positive of the battery, it'll give us a voltage reading on the FlySky transmitter that he's got, so he can constantly monitor the battery in the drift car. It is nice to keep an eye on these, because they do last a long time, your batteries, when you're drifting, and it's easy to run them really lower than you want to. And of course, with spinning wheels, you don't get that such a voltage drop, so it does tend to warn you. On the ESC side, the cut-off seems to kick in a lot later, and if you can just solder this one wire on, it's not really that untidy. I like to run it on my drift car, and the transmitter will show you the real-time voltage of your battery. So let's get these wires soldered up. We've got some nice ends, so hopefully these fit his batteries all right, and we've got some nice caps that screw down to them. So we'll get all these fitted and yeah, see what this comes out like. So this is pretty much finished. We've got a steering, bumper, all the bits fastened on, the extra bits that we've got. So the kit actually comes with this KKPit plate and 2 more of them little cat-sunk washers. So we've got that matted up here. It's a better place for this to go. Easier reach for the speed controller. And this little bracket, there's no instructions on where that goes, but it does make a mighty fine little aerial antenna holder. So we've got that. Other things we've got is battery in. We've got the battery connectors on. Not a huge fan of these. I thought they'd be pretty cool, but they're just a pain in the backside to solder and then flatten the solder off to get the caps on. Not a big fan of them. Do like the purple wiring. I've left this black one on mainly because, one, you don't really want to get your battery connections mixed up. 2, it's to the entire ground of this particular ESC, and overheating that can damage it. I have soldered the caps back on, so they're where they should be. Just fastened the switch to the side bottom here, so we can just get to it from underneath the body shell and power it on. Particularly quiet fan on these. His battery does fit well. Don't like this at all. It just batters your fingers. It's an awful design. But I think you'll be able to get a better thumb screw for that, because that is truly horrible. The actual gears sound nice and quiet. Do really like how these purple wirings come along. I do like that. It sort of ties everything in. So even the receiver has got purple on it, the YANTRS GYB. Because he's running the YANTRS, you don't need a separate gyro. And all we need to do now is get the RC set up. Let's see if I can get us focused on our transmitter.
Welcome to Novo Pro Plus.
So he's going to be using an MB4 Pro Plus or an MB4 Plus, can't remember which one it is. But basically they all pretty much work the same for this. So what we're going to want to do is go onto the transmitter. You want to go to a new model memory, and then for me I'd reset it, so reset model. Then we can come out. You want to make sure channel definition is 4. You can, while you're in here, you can give it a name, so you can name it if you want. Then we're going to go to RX menu. So we're going to press and hold the bind button. Power on, puts us receiver in bind mode. We're going to set, enhanced, start bind. It'll quickly bind up. Then we're going to come into here, and there's a few things that you might want to set. So this button here, if we go into this, then go to function. So we want to scroll along till we get to smart vehicle control. That will turn the SVC on and off. And on this, you want to leave it to normal and turn. Then we can come to this top one and the bottom one, variable dials. So if we go on here, change that to 1, come along here, and this is the bare minimum what you want control of. So if we come down here, we've got SVC steering gain, so we can put that on. And then what I would do is reverse it, and it'll make more sense. As you roll the dial forward, you can change the gain up and down, and as you roll it back, it'll come down. Then on this one, again, change it to 1, reverse it, function. And on this one, we're looking for SVC priority. And it depends what you really want, whether you want your input or the priority of the gyro to take control of it. And basically what it'll do, the easiest way to explain, as you put the priority more to one or the other, so you or the gyro, it'll take a lot longer to turn. So if it's more prioritized towards the gyro, you'd have a bigger turning circle. Then we need to come out of here, and we want to go to sub trim. Now on this RC it's pretty easy to set this, so we've got it on this and we just move it, and then basically you're just looking for the rack to be centered, and you can look at these 2 points and tell when the steering is centered. So for me that looks about right. Then we can back out of that. Then you're going to go into your endpoints. If we turn, we can see it's overturning just. So this servo is really good match. So basically you just want to go to 100% and then back it down, and then you can just keep turning till your bump stop just touches your suspension. Now it depends if you do want it to turn that far, but basically we can just then back off. And we can just make it so lock to lock it turns the exact same, and we're just getting as bump stops just coming to the point where they're touching arms. Then we can come up here, we can go to choose sensors, hit that, scroll down to as BVD, and that is for the little white wire going to positive on battery. So we can see as battery voltage up here. And as you see, it's pretty quiet. We've got SVC off, so let's flick the light back on. Now we're not concentrating so much on the transmitter, but no stability control. Hit the button. Then we got stability control, and you can see as it slides, it turns into the skid, which it's supposed to. If I just knock light back off and we come back to the transmitter, I know it's a bit awkward to get this. So we can come into SVC. It does tell you to calibrate the gyro first off, so let it run through that. But if your gyro's going the wrong way, you can reverse it. Ours was going the right way to start with, so then you've got a whole bunch of settings in here, and you can assign these to various dials. So most of these, if not all, you can set to dials, and then in here you've got different modes for different cars, or you can go in custom and you can set the damper points and everything, and your filter if you're getting too much jitter on your steering. Basically it's like having a fully programmable gyro but from your transmitter. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And again, a lot of those settings you can also customize, set to various buttons if you need to move on the fly. But it's looking quite nice. This servo, completely stock settings. I haven't tried programming it or anything, but that's running pretty quick as it is. I think that'll easily be quick enough to keep up with any kind of needs from gyro. We do have 6V BEC set at this at the moment. We can up that, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to let him try it like this, and then if we need more speed from servo, we can bump the BEC up on the speed controller. If we need more accuracy or anything, we can also up the hertz that the actual servo itself's running at. With it being one of the YANTRS, it's fully programmable. But yeah, I think overall quite a good pairing. The FlySky transmitter, and I've been running this sort of setup in my MD 2.0, so hopefully I'll be able to go down and give it a run around along with this, and we should have some pretty enjoyable drifting. The last thing is the body shell. Pretty much all I've done to mount this, I've just left the body post standard, and then I've just stuck some clear tape on and mounted the magnets to it. And if I can get it somewhere near, yeah, it sits on pretty good. I wouldn't try and pick the RC up with it, but driving around it should hold it on. But yeah, that's what we've got. Little Skyline, nice little exhaust stuck out back. So quite an interesting little RC. Must admit, not one of my favourite build processes for fitting this body shell. I have very quickly just undone these 2 screws and these 4 and just extended the wheelbase a little at the front just to make it line up that bit better. We do need to get something sorted with the shocks, so we've still got some shock oil to work out, see what he wants to put in it. Yeah, not sure what springs we need to run on this and what shock oil he's going to put in, but yeah, I like the purple wires. I like the way it's actually laid out. It does seem quite nice. The steering's very direct. It should be a pretty nice drift car, and it's not too noisy. The cooling fan on these is pretty quiet. No excessive noise from servo. I'm not hearing any horrible noises from the drivetrain or anything.
Shutting down.
But yeah, should be an interesting little RC to run. We've got to get some control wheels and tyres and a bit of fine tuning for camber and everything. But hopefully I'll be able to get you some running videos sooner or later with this. So let's wrap this one up. So the KKPit PD-K, yeah, different. It looks quite nice like this. The magnetic body mounts, yeah, pretty acceptable. I like the way they fit on. The actual car feels really solid. There's not much play in anything, the suspension, anything like that. Only thing that I would say is a sort of letdown with this kit. I mean, you can't argue with how nice it looks. No instructions to tell you what this bit is. No instructions to tell you what that bit is or where it goes, so I've just used them where I saw fit. The shocks, they're quite nice once they're built up, but no instruction on which spring you should use, where, how you should set them, nothing. This bit is awful. This is really horrible. The mechanism for getting the battery in and out, I don't mind at all. It's quite nice, but this thumb screw is really horrid to use. The sort of build of it is, it's more annoying than hard to follow. Just the way you have to mess around, multiple tabs open, and the kit itself, most of the quality feels quite nice. Certainly not of the quality of sort of the MD 2.0. This does look like sandcast aluminium, not machined, and it doesn't feel the same quality, but you're not paying anywhere near the money. The MD 2.0 and 3.0, 799 quid kits, these just over 400 quid, so a big difference. Yet to be seen how it's going to handle. Quite interested to see what it's going to drive like. I do like the actual look of the kit. There's an awful lot I do like about it. You just need to be aware they're not the easiest instructions in the world, and there is a few bits where it looks like they've cheaped out. Plastic X's. I know you don't really need aluminium ones, but I'd have liked to see at least alloy hexes. Certainly a few bits where the hubs could have been anodized and the arms and that, but then you'd have been paying a lot more money. As I say, really impressed the lack of slop in anything. It really is built nice. Unfortunate that it doesn't have the countersunk washers. They're missing, so bit unfortunate that they didn't leave them in kit. Should have been in. few bits in kit, in instructions are just really misleading, where it shows you a purple bit and it's a black bit. It shows you a black bit and it's a silver bit. I don't know what they were thinking with them. But not an awful kit to build, and gotta admit, it does look the part. The purple wires set it off nicely. Not awkward to sort of get to anything once you built it. Quite easy to get round things. And yeah, hopefully it drives really nice. But I'll have to wait till this Saturday. We'll be going down in a few days' time, hopefully, if we can get the tyres, control tyres from RC Complex, because I don't have time to order any. And hopefully I'll get some running footage of both this and the MD 2.0, and we'll go and have a good few hours playing around down at RC Complex and get you some running footage. But for now, that is the KKPit PD-K drift car kit, all fully assembled. Thanks again for watching WTF Rc Cars. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.